This is an update of sorts on what's going to be happening with the scripted review series on this channel for at least the next several weeks. So, a little over 2 years ago, I got the idea on this channel to go back to my old weblog, which I had started years before I started this YouTube channel, and to take all the old reviews that I had written, both of TV series and movies and book reviews, and make those into YouTube videos. To be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure this was my best idea, but it's something I've started, and I'm going to see this through till the end. So I've been doing, I call them scripted reviews, and I called them scripted reviews because the idea I had in the beginning was I would read off the review exactly as I had written it once upon a time, so the whole thing was scripted. In practice, I often find that what I've written up doesn't lend itself to being read on the camera. Quite often what I wrote years ago is just pretty terrible. So I often will use my notes about what I wrote years ago as a jumping off point, which is to say that the word scripted review is somewhat of a misnomer. Quite often these are more ad-libbed than scripted, but that's the name I've chosen, so that's what I've been going along with. Anyways, I've been keeping this weblog since 2003. From 2003 until 2006, I was irregularly reviewing the books and movies I was reading, which means I was doing it whenever the mood struck me, but I wasn't doing it regularly. From 2006 and 2007, I started reviewing all the movies and books that I would read or watch regularly. So if I read a book, I would review it. If I saw a movie, I would review it. It was a project I was working on. So I've been working my way through these on the video series, and I've slowed down my pace a little bit since I started this 2 years ago. Initially, my goal was to post a video every day, but then work and family life got too much. I've a parent now. I've got a young child in the house. So then it was once every 2 days. Now I've dropped that down to once every week. Once every week is the minimum. If I have extra time, I'll try and get something out, try and get more out. But once every week now is my new minimum standard for these scripted reviews, and I'm slowly working my way through all the reviews I've written on my weblog over the years, and I'm up to 2013. When I wrote a long post talking about all the TV shows I watched during the previous 2 years. Actually, let me back up a bit and talk about why I was watching so many TV shows. Maybe a lot of you can identify with this. I have been throughout my adult life, my ambition has been to watch less TV and to read more books. And it's something I have really struggled to fulfill that ambition. Largely because I find it so easy to watch TV and hard work to read books. Even books that are easy to read, I find that my attention span, I struggle with it. So even something that's a relatively easy read, I can sit for maybe about 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and get about 10 or 20 pages read. But I really have trouble going much beyond that. And actually, an hour is pretty good for me. About 20 minutes is about my normal reading time before I start getting restless. And I feel like I'm losing concentration. I have to put the book down. That's for an easy read. Some of the books I've been reading have been more challenging, and those require even more efforts of concentration. Whereas television, on the other hand, I can watch it for hours. In fact, I've noticed myself. I've made attempts over the years to cut myself off from television, to get rid of my TV, to shut off the internet in my apartment to just make it so I don't have access to it. And I found actually that if I don't have access to TV, I feel like I don't know what to do with myself in the evenings. It's almost difficult for me to imagine that for centuries people have lived without TV, because it feels like, what are you going to do in the evenings? I mean, you can't read, right? I could read for a half hour, but I can't spend the whole evening reading. It feels like it's some sort of need that I have to watch television. And so during the times of my life when I've cut myself off from TV or internet, feels like, I don't know, it feels like some sort of addiction that needs to be fulfilled. I don't feel like I can manage the evening unless I've got something to watch. And that obviously is not biological, because we humans didn't evolve with TV. That's been habit formed. There was an interesting article I was reading on television addiction. I actually read this for an IELTS class I was teaching. I believe it's from some sort of scientific journal, but it's been used as an IELTS reading. And I'll include a link to it in the description down below, where it talks about what seems to be a real thing about television addiction. It even talks about some of the physical aspects of it, like when you sit down to watch, your arteries carrying blood to the brain enlarge, and there's this feeling of relaxation. And I guess that can be habit forming. I mean, the other thing it mentioned in the article as well is that people, after they've watched TV, have a very hard time feeling productive again. The feeling like television has just sapped all your energy. Like you sit down to watch something and you watch TV for about an hour. And maybe you have ambitions that you're going to do other things with your evening. Like, I'm just going to watch TV for an hour and then I'm going to get some writing done, or then I'm going to get some reading, or clean the house or whatever. But then after that hour is done, you just feel, you don't feel recharged. You feel just lethargic. And so that the only thing that you seem to have energy to do is to just watch another hour. And then before you know it, you've watched 3 or 4 hours of TV that evening. And, you know, as the article says, you don't even really seem to be enjoying those last couple hours of watching TV, but you just feel like you're sucked into the TV screen. I don't know how many people can identify with that. I mean, I feel like probably a lot of people can identify with that. I guess the question is whether a lot of people on BookTube can identify with that, because BookTube is well, it tends to attract people who maybe are more at home reading for the whole evening instead of watching TV. In spite of all the reviews I've been putting out on this channel, I mean, I guess keep in mind those reviews are coming over the last 15 years. They're not my reading list for the past couple years, so it gives the illusion that maybe I've read more than I have. The truth is, I've wasted so much time just in front of the TV or in front of the computer the last years, time which I wish I would have redirected reading, but had a very hard time doing that. Anyways, I was cut off from a lot of TV for various reasons. I mean, when I first moved out to Japan in 2001, it was hard to find American TV, or at least hard to find the shows I was interested in. There are various shows that would make it over to Japan that were popular, but they weren't always the ones I was interested in. Then I tried to cut off myself from TV and internet altogether for a few years, as I mentioned earlier. And then I found myself living in Cambodia, and I was living in Cambodia from 2011 to 2015. Although this post I wrote on the weblog recounting my television viewing habits was something I wrote in 2013. So the viewing habits from 2011 and 2012. And if you're not familiar with Cambodia, And sorry, I should caveat this by saying I left Cambodia in 2015, so all my information is 5 years out of date. I don't know if anything has changed since that time. If it has, somebody let me know in the comments. But at that time, Cambodia was a land of very cheap DVDs. DVDs were sold for $1.50. And there were just all these stores everywhere, which would just have rows and rows of so many DVDs. You could find almost anything you were looking for. Obscure old well, you couldn't find everything you were looking for, but you could find a lot. I mean, like a lot of new TV shows, a lot of old TV shows, and they would package them up. And they were all not produced with the proper copyright. And a lot of people on the internet probably don't care too much about copyright. But if you're one of those people who do care about it, don't judge me too harshly, because in Cambodia, you couldn't buy a legal DVD if you wanted to. I mean, there was no brand name shopping mall you could go to where you could buy an officially sanctioned DVD from Sony or Warner Brothers or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what the economics of this or what the politics of this are, because I know at various points the U.S. government has tried to get Cambodia to crack down on the illegal DVD selling that they've been doing, and every so often they would stage like this big what's the word I'm looking for? Show, a big show where they'd have all these DVDs and they'd run over them with a steamroller or something like that to indicate that they're cracking down on these illegal DVDs, but they never really seem to be serious about cracking down on it. And I'm not quite sure what the U.S. media companies hoped to get out of Cambodia, because it's a third world country where the average wage or the cost of living is just much below what it is in the U.S. So you couldn't ask a Cambodian to pay $25 for a DVD the way you would in the U.S. I mean, $1.50 actually. $1.50 is actually what the Westerners paid for the DVDs. The Cambodians paid about half that. If you went to the Cambodian shops, the Cambodian shops, it was about 75 cents or maybe $1 per DVD. Now, I don't think actually these were actually produced in Cambodia. And again, I don't know the details of this, so this is all speculation. But I think they were actually produced somewhere in China, just because I don't think they had the manpower or the expertise to do this in Cambodia. And they would have a DVD, and they would have it in a sleeve. Sometimes they would have it in a plastic thing, but they used to have for DVDs in the U.S. The plastic container that you would open, but more often it would just be in a little sleeve, and it would also come with cover art, which had been made somewhere in China, I guess, where they would had a little flimsy piece of paper where they would have the poster and the information on the back. So it all looked somewhat professionally done. And it always surprised me, or I thought it was a point of interest that it was worth somebody's time and money to pirate the DVD, to put it in the sleeve, to make the fake cover art and the poster, and to put it in there, to distribute these from China along some sort of supply chain. And all they wanted was $1.50 or 75 cents at the Cambodian places. Which makes you think, when you buy a packaged DVD set in the U.S. and you're paying $25 for the DVD, that $25 has just got to be pure profit for the companies that are selling it, right? They're not spending a lot of money on materials. And maybe if it's, like a new release, then they're counting on those DVD sales to supplement the theatrical release revenue. But, certainly when you buy like a DVD set of like Star Trek episodes, something that was on TV 50 years ago and made its money back way back in the 1960s. That's got to be just pure profit. And you know, if you buy like a DVD set where you buy like all 3 seasons of Star Trek, the original series, and what do they charge for that? Like, it's like, I don't know, how much do DVDs cost nowadays? I remember it used to be like a couple $100 back in my day that they would charge for these DVD sets. And that's just pure profit, because it costs them like $1.50 to make these DVDs, and that TV show has been off the air for years. Anyways, that's something I always thought was interesting. I'm going off on a tangent, I realize. So I just gave in to my television addiction, and I watched way more TV than was healthy for me. And I didn't even want to watch most of it. I would get home in the evening, and I would feel like I wanted something to relax. So I'd buy like a package set, you know, I could buy the Wire season 1, which you could get in these Cambodian shops. And I think I'm only going to watch 1 episode tonight, and then tomorrow I'm actually not going to watch anything, and I'm going to read my book tomorrow. But then I would end up watching 5 episodes that night, and then I would end up watching more in the morning, and then I'd end up watching more when I came home from the next day. I just completely lacked self-control. The allure of watching a series was, yeah, I don't know. I just was frustrated by my lack of control, but binged way too many series. So in 2013, I wrote a blog post attempting to recount a lot of the shows I had seen. It wasn't even all of them, but it was certainly a lot of them. And some of them, I went into a few paragraphs of detail. And some of them I just gave 1-sentence reviews to. I've got it printed out here. It's about 6.5 pages. Now, the question is, do I break this into a lot of mini videos, or do I just do it all as one video? It's too long to do as one video. And I'm tired. I don't want to be up all night trying to read this off into one video. On the other hand, to do this as a bunch of mini videos is almost too short. I have done that in the past. When I first started the scripted review series a couple years ago, I had a couple posts where I just had like, but this was before I started reviewing movies regularly, so they were just summing up the movies I had seen that month with just a couple sentences each. And I did attempt, when I was filming those, to break them up into small videos, like, 30 seconds each video, which was kind of a little pointless. And I had a lot less subscribers at that point, so I felt a lot less shame about doing something so ridiculous. But I think what I'm going to try and do, I mean, the smart thing to do would just be to skip over this completely. But I'm more concerned about being complete than I am about being reasonable. And I'd like to have a complete record of the reviews here as I'm transferring this to YouTube. So what I'm going to try and do, I think, is make a few short videos about some of these that I've got enough to talk about. And again, maybe I'll supplement the few paragraphs I've got written down with some of my memories. And then maybe when I get to the end where there's just not enough to talk about for the end of those, I'll do a wrap-up video of that. So, sorry for rambling on for so long. I guess the point of this is the scripted review series for the next several weeks are going to be probably shorter videos in which I review TV series that I watched about 7 or 8 years ago, and which are somewhat faded in my memory by this point. Actually, truth be told, they were faded in my memory even in 2013 when I wrote up that blog post, because I was writing that up, recounting the viewing I had done the 2 years previous. And the thing about binging shows is you don't remember them as well if you watch them all in one binge session than if you had watched them week by week. And so even at the time, some of these shows I was like, what did I see again? I didn't even remember all the story arcs from all the seasons, etc. But all that being said, I'm going to make a go of trying to make some videos out of this mess of a blog post. For better or for worse, I guess we'll see how it turns out.